I can ask anybody any question and they get stumped, right?
Hmm.
And they wouldn't know how to answer me. But you in particular, I throw a lot of question at you, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, but you will be able to answer me. Was it always like that? I'm curious, like, how did it get this? Why you're so open minded?
Um, a lot of reasons, but um, probably the one that I run back to the most is a interview that Bruce Lee did back in the 70s, where the interviewer was asking him, after he asked him to define his fighting style, and he was kind of all over the place with it because it was his own style. Um, but he kind of asked him, if you had to give advice to anyone listening out there, what would it be? And he said, be like water. You put water in a vessel, in a cup, and it becomes the shape of that cup. You pour it out, and it takes the shape of whatever you poured it on. So if everyone kind of adopts the same mentality in life, um, you find yourself being much more open. And to the point of, sticking with water, if you are a closed minded person, it's kind of like trying to contain a river with a dam. Um, there's not to say that there's necessarily anything wrong with being closed minded. I couldn't do that myself. But um, even dams have to have ports for some of the water to get out, else you create a flood. So, try not to be completely closed minded with things. Be like water and just flow, and it'll make everything in your life a lot easier to deal with.
Wow, I feel like so many people are affected by Bruce Lee. I'm serious, uh, because I just interviewed a Wing Chun master. It was pretty amazing. You know, that was legitness. But uh, but toward how can you're pretty successful yourself? How can people win in life, and what is the methodology for winning and becoming successful?
It starts in the morning when you wake up and you tell yourself, I've already won. Um, I'm not a big fan of books like The Secret and The $1 Million Philosophy or anything like that. But to a point, they do make a very valid argument in that when you feel defeated, you defeat yourself. And when you feel successful, you feel more confident, you give off that aura of being confident to everyone around you. And thus they automatically assume that you are confident or are successful. Um, so, as soon as you wake up in the morning, even if it is not what you feel, I dread waking up every morning. I'm not a morning person and I get quite zombie like, but I just have the mindset of, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to knock this out so I can come back and go back to sleep. That's my mindset, but it works a lot in the same ways.
So you would say that it would have to all do with the mind, or the mindset, if you will, right?
Not completely, but that
Hmm.
is most definitely where it starts. Um,
Sorry, but what do you mean by not completely?
well, again, another one of the sources that I like to go to a lot is Batman. Um, for a fictional character, he's pretty well rounded. Um, but if you look at any halfway decent Batman story, a lot of them will rely on his mind. He is first and foremost a detective, but um, it's not just enough for him to be a detective. He also had to train for several years in his craft. He had to learn sciences. He had to get his body and his mind fit for the task that he saw ahead. And that is the other side of what is needed to be successful. It's not enough to wake up and go, I will be a success because I think I am. No, that is most definitely the 80% that will get you there. But another 20 is just as important. And that is the preparation to be successful. Even if it is, prepping what you're going to wear the next day before you go to bed, or making sure that you've read up on that book that you know you're going to talk about the next day. Um, that 20% of preparation will go very, very, very far.
I hear what you're saying, right? You're saying in order to become successful, we should prepare. But I feel like not many people are prepared. How can they actually start preparing for success or any opportunity that comes their way?
Anything that we want in life, we usually tend to, kind of fantasize or romanticize about before we actually go out and get it. Um, if you're like me and you've just been waiting for that new Harley to come out and you're like, oh my God, once it drops, this is going to be awesome. You start reading all the brochures and, you start getting that picture in your mind of what you're going to look like when you're on it. Um, that's kind of where that preparation starts. It is, what do I need to do? Just in your head, what is it that I need to do to get to that goal? And that's kind of the part where a lot of people end up defeating themselves. They fully realize that, okay, it's going to be an uphill journey to get to that point, and thus they just automatically say it's not worth it. I will never make it there. It is not worth the effort. I'm just going to stop right now. Um, don't do that. Even if you make it a tenth of a way up the hill, you're still a tenth further than where you started. And if you keep doing that, eventually you'll hit that 100% and you'll be at the top of the hill. So, again, that preparation and that mindset, it goes hand in hand. And you can't be a success without one or the other.
I see. And also, I would like to add a little bit when you say that, we also, prepare our mind and absorb, like, you get excited, right?
Mm-hmm.
You try to reach, like you said, romanticize about the thing that we're trying to achieve, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's also how we also why that's how we start taking action and we start buying the thing that we want because we take a picture in our mind and then we feel the feeling in our body that of the happiness that we about the object, whatever it is, a toy or an iPhone, and we like wow, and that's how you don't buy on logic, but you buy on emotion, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
that's how it is. So in you are a property manager and you have to manage people from day to day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you really manage people and or can you bring out the best out? How can you bring out the best out of people
You have
in the
to,
right way? Sorry, sorry.
well, no, you're all right. Um, First off, you have to recognize the strengths and weaknesses within yourself. Um, if you aren't a very strong orator, maybe you prefer to write things down, and that's how you communicate. Um, or, maybe if you're not a strong writer, then you beef up your oral skills, and that's how you communicate. But you have to recognize the strengths and weaknesses within yourself first and foremost. Um, and then you have to try to mirror them to the people that you're managing. Um, if you know that you have one person who math is just not their strong suit, well, obviously you're going to try to avoid giving them anything math related. Um, it just doesn't make any sense. But again, you have to know that about those people in order to effectively manage them or lead them.
Oh, sorry about that. I was in listening. I was like, wow. So basically, you're saying that you have to be flexible with people, right?
You do, again, to a point. Um, you want to be flexible in the way that you approach people and approach tasks, but at the end of the day, you still have a job to do. You still have to get from point A to B, and that you can't be flexible on. You have to know within yourself that, no matter what, push come to shove, we're going to get from A to B, but now what is the best way to do that?
Okay. I would like to, because when as I was getting a feel for you, do you see yourself as Batman, or you like portray him as that? Because I know you into Batman too a lot.
I really am. I grew up on Batman, so that was kind of my probably first role model, I would say. Um, I don't necessarily see myself as Batman. Um, I'm not quite to that point yet. I don't feel like um, there's always more room to grow, room to learn, room to develop myself. But I do, I probably relate more to Bruce Wayne in the sense that I have that drive and that determination to do it. I know
Yeah,
what it takes and I know what I need to do to get there.
yeah, I can see that in you. I really like when I first met you. I can see it in you, right? Like you have this aura or like confidence in you. I was like, wow, like that hit home. Like I was like, wow, that's amazing. Um, for so many of my generation and so many young people who are on their phone texting, which I want to, cause you know me, I read, but I never was like this before. I never knew how to communicate. I don't know how to be able to get my message across, right? So my point is, what I'm trying to say is that to those who are listening to the audience, it's not always because texting, you can get away with it, right?
Mhm.
But people are always about themselves.
Right.
It's not always it's not always about yourself. It's about other people. But how can they what how can they understand people, and what can you give? Can you give the advice to the audience to help them to become more successful with understanding people and relation in their relationship with others?
Um, First, you kind of need to look at yourself. Again, everything starts with you. Um, if you actually kind of let me backtrack. A lot of people lack the ability to be able to self-examine themselves and really be honest with themselves about what they see. And again, just like with your mindset, that's kind of the first place where they falter in that. Anyone who cannot see the fault in themselves, because I think we can all agree that no one's perfect, anyone who can't see the fault in themselves is already doomed to fail from the start. You have to be able to recognize what's wrong with you. I'm not saying that that needs to be the point where you stop examining, um, but it's just very important that you be able to recognize, okay, here's what I need to work on. And once you have done that, okay, now you need to examine how those things affect other people. If you're an angry person, how does your anger affect others? Or, if you are sad, how does that affect other people? And vice versa. If you're, you know, I have a sibling who is constantly happy. She's always walking on sunshine. And me not being a morning person, you can see the hilarity that ensues in the early morning hours whenever we're around each other.